we can only give away the same amount of heart that we have. So, if we've been giving our heart away every single time that we have relationships with one another, then we have especially if we've been traumatized to some degree, then we have been giving our heart away, but we have not necessarily given our whole heart away in each and every instance. So in other words, in some particular cases, some of us started out damaged, and if we were giving out a portion of our heart from the onset, even when we fell in love at our pinnacle of whatever love was at that time, we still really didn't fall in love the same exact way as if when we were to give our heart away fully. So, we shield ourselves through actions and through basic law and agreements, verbal agreements, to delude ourselves into determining deluding ourselves to think whether or not we're doing something correct based solely on modern day law. For an example, in the not too distant past, it was okay to use certain racially derogatory terms. These were not things that were uncommon. They were quite common. And because they were common and acceptable, people could use those terms. Now, in today's world, we have the same type of thing, but it's taken as acceptable, tolerable name-calling to yell at someone, saying, for an example, a politically aligned party's name, but in a slanderous way. Or basically saying any name in a slanderous way. These are disrespectful dishonors towards one another. And if we dishonor one another purposefully, accidentally, we're essentially taking the Lord's name in vain, so to speak. So, with all of that being said, we put a lot of law into the meat and potatoes of what our soup is supposed to be, which is knowledge, in other words. Knowledge and being grateful helps us become so efficient in the long run that we don't want to harm anything, because to harm that thing, for an example, let's say we purchase insecticide. To harm that insect to death takes a chemical which, upon extraction, is already harming the environment. And to add further insult to injury, we're taking packaging that advertises who we're paying in order to contain the product that we're going to sell for a profit. All of what we have has been given to us for free. We can have our own gardens and raise our own offspring to understand the right from wrong decisions of wanting more than we need. To eliminate greed starts at a subset of thoughts that first recognizes that we can hide parts of information from one another. So, it's not uncommon for people to have absolutely unknown lives, even to their closest partners. And that's because there's a side of us that sometimes is hidden. Sometimes even from ourselves. Those are the thoughts to bear in mind as we hear these next stories. Basically, wanted to record some of this insight and overlay it, but the thought was so long. It's a long thought to cover it from start to finish to where you can recognize I'm still talking about conservation and wellness. The thought was so long that I had to start recording it. And I started recording it because, well, like I said, it's a profound thought. And I wanted to share it. And I'm sharing it in a way that hopefully is meaningful to you, and hopefully you've slowed your thought process down enough to also hear what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. And I hope you forgive me for the way that I talk. On top of the way I talk, which is already a little bit different from the get-go, the traffic and changes in direction take priority, no matter what. It's like if someone were to be yelling at me right now while I'm driving, I'm a professional, I got this. I'm not going to lose my cool. Now, recently I was able to travel with someone who performed an array of unusual things while we were driving together. Most other drivers probably would have lost their minds, lost their sense of cool. I either have a witness who was with me for the whole experience, or I don't. When someone witnesses something with you that is so spiritually different that it almost has to be taken as a spiritual attack, even for the non-believer, those type of things are worth pausing about and talking about. So for today's segment on wellness and conservation, I think this is episode 16? Like I say, I'm doing something different. I'm just following the basis of who I am. I joke around a lot because I grew up loving to watch terrifying horror movies. And those movies are things that have sayings in them that if you like stuff like, let's say for an example, The Family Guy or The Simpsons or any comedy, I sometimes joke around after a saying such as I just delivered right before I started to prelude or preload this insight. I wanted to say the power of Christ compels me to basically be myself in front of you. And also I wanted to explain up front, my past, it definitely factors into the language that I use. So if I heard a lot of rough language, let's say I worked at, a car dealership, and I spent a lot of time with the mechanics in the back. You know, when back in the day it was acceptable to have a poster hanging up that had some, if at all, clothed girl, you know, when you could smoke in the engine area, in the service shops, but Later, laws would, move you to the outside area so that you didn't catch any of the oil or gasoline on fire and explode the whole shop. I'm just saying, some of these things that we accept, because I haven't changed the subject for those of you who are still able to hear. The things that we accept boil down to whether or not it was told to us at some point, and then we accept it as common knowledge. It used to be acceptable to smoke in the service area and in the cockpit for planes that were commercial flights. And I did shift topic right there, mid-flight, so to speak. So if I'm throwing you off, that's okay. You're supposed to be thinking. You're supposed to be open-minded and understand. I'm flowing, man. I'm in the current. Just like Lord Byron here, who you've been staring at, wondering, what is this guy talking about? Did I have the foresight to know that I was going to do some of the things that I'm doing or say something in a certain way? No. I just passed a sign right now that said, have a blessed day. I noticed it, and I smiled, because I'm having a blessed day. Every day that I appreciate and ask for something to tend to in a way that helps mutually, because other people would like to receive help that only you can deliver. Anytime that these things happen, and I ask, please God, let me help someone else, brighten out someone else's day today. I ask because that brightens my own day. It's very difficult in today's world to understand why some people do some of the things that they do. It's quite difficult. I'll basically revisit at some point a more detailed outline of exactly why. But already in this segment, I've already noted how unusual it was that I got a message on Facebook. At least a couple of weeks into when I'd taken a break from social media. Some of you guys might remember this. Some of you guys who are really listening to these stories, you'll understand I'm telling a story. And I didn't find it curious. I just wondered, when is this going to bring itself up? Well, it wasn't until last night that I finally got to see this message that both messages on Facebook that I said might have a nefarious purpose. When it came down to it, that was, in fact, true. I didn't know it was going to be. I didn't say it into existence. I'm just following as clearly as possible what was outlined in one of these texts that talks about moving up the levels of peace. Peace in yourself. There's a lot of stuff in these books that's really good. We can look at different memes and the shortest snippets of each other's lives for as long as we want, and always overlook even the worst of it. Or we can understand that the reason that we want to vilify that person so much is because that's an internal reflection of who we are at our core. If we were to really release the beast, so to speak, release the Kraken. So you see, that's how that reference goes back to what I just said earlier about, I wanted to preload my thought saying sometimes I say these things from things that I've seen in the past. Release the Kraken. Any of you guys ever heard that? Some of the youngsters may not have. So anyway, that's what Google is for. Google can do a lot of things. It helped me communicate quite a bit with someone who I didn't even know on the day that I met them and they were looking for help. What an amazing era right now to live in when we have the ability to communicate with people, with one another, with masses, so quickly and easily that it's almost being done without care because it doesn't have a value. It's free. You're free. I'm free. It's free. It doesn't have a value except for what we spend on it attention-wise. The moment I said spend, I drove by a dead opossum on the road. I haven't seen a lot of dead wildlife on the road recently, so that's, it was unusual. I noted it. I still feel the same thing that I felt before, but the emotion doesn't take priority as I come closer and closer to levels of calm without anxiety. I always have difficulties even remembering the word for that affliction. I'll call it an affliction because it is what it is. It's very viral. It's just as viral as any other thought that we believe in and think about and focus on every day. If we focus on bringing peace to the world, we're presented with opportunities. Now, nothing in life is free. Nothing. No matter what anyone will tell you. Not even you. You came with a price. It was paid for in advance, just like we've been told. But some people are taking a little bit more than their share without even being grateful for it. And when I say more than their share, I don't mean you're not entitled to it. Sure, you're entitled to it. But when there are shortages even in a seasonal time frame, shouldn't we be cutting back? How is it that we're gaining all that weight? How is that wellness and conservation plan going for any of us? Myself included. I gotta say, it's been a struggle. It's not until you really want to take control that you take control. So, what I'm going to be doing over the next half of these 30 days of wellness and health is going to be just as diverse as it has been. And at the same time, it's going to be just as unique as well. There's no way around it. You're either enjoying the journey in life or you're struggling. If you're listening to me, it might be you're struggling. Or it might be you've succeeded and you're hearing all of this beautiful insight that I have, that I learned from my own failures. Our fathers may not have given us that insight, not because they didn't want to, but because it's up to a generation of generations to determine in that era whether something should persist any longer. And it's not until we agree in unison as friends, not until then will we work together almost having fun, because we know without a doubt we are all on the same page with one another, united, one globe, indivisible, because everyone is understanding of what a share is. And a share is not a piece of paper. A share is something that you do in a way where if you borrow something, I'm turning around in the parking lot, there's a smashed beer can, a plastic part of a toothbrush, some can tabs, the cheapest of the rubbish that's addictive is all around me. Now, thank God, this big marvelous tree that I'm parking by right now doesn't have any of that garbage around it. By coincidence, I don't know. But I do know I'm right by the river now. I'm going to take a quick break, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening along. And again, now that I'm parked, I can talk a lot more fluidly and concentrate. When I drive, driving is the priority. I don't care what's happening at one point in time, what you believe or don't believe. But when you believe enough, it's the way that your program runs, whether or not somebody is paying attention. So,
I hope you paid attention. This is a long clip of some interesting stuff that you're definitely not going to learn or hear elsewhere in some cases, primarily because the era was not conducive to hearing these types of insights. And our attention spans were at some points in time a little bit too clouded to hear unless we really slowed down our breathing and just listened in, hung in there till the end, and watched and admired Lord Byron here swimming around, enjoying his beautiful day. I hope you're enjoying your beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining. Please check out the description. The description has information about how to help promote what it is that I am talking about, which is just bringing peace and internal peace in some cases, which sometimes is as simple as rearranging what's external, what we can see around us. There's no trash right by this tree that I'm going to step out by and hang out with for a while. I'm going to make sure it's that way, and maybe I'll walk down to the river right now. I'm going to either come back to this spot or go to another branch of the river after I'm done with my visit that I'm driving around for today. And once that's done, I am going to spend some me time by the river. Right now, you see and think of me as going to places on vacation, possibly. These aren't vacations in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, I'm going to accomplish something, which is to deliver a message about wellness and conservation because of the things that I'm seeing in wildlife, how there is a significant, marked decline in the wildlife around us. Some will not hang in all the way to hear this full-on message that all ties together. And in a way, it just takes another person to hear with me what I'm saying and to agree in their own heart that, sure, things are struggling. Let me look at shares, how it all ties. Oh, I shouldn't buy any more bottles of any kind of plastic-contained sugary or not sugary substance. It's just not right. That's the way an era needs to think. Once we think that way, our grandmothers and our grandfathers will think it's cool to not have plastic bottles anymore. It's awesome to use reusable things. And how quick we can adapt when we are totally flexible. And I can't quite recall right off the bat what it was called in the project, flexible, agile. In our projects, we had a concept that if our team was agile, we could quickly reaccount for the things that were off, and we could basically transform collectively on a dime. Probably on a lot less than a dime. Probably on a cryptocurrency, which is another ethereal, message-based, sales-based, not really. None of the money part matters. The only part that matters is if you care about an area like this tree that I'm about to step out by. I had to drive out to accomplish some things and visit. Like I say, make a visit, and in order to make it all tie together, I stop in nature. I pick up some of the trash at the parks. And on occasion, as you've noticed on this channel, I try to bring knowledge to the table. And so I'm bringing this message. Someone out there is hearing it loud and clear. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure who is hearing it. Might be a her based on what just happened there. Like I say, the subconscious is interesting. It'll sometimes just lend itself an answer for you. These words that I'm saying, I don't know the half of what I'm talking about that makes me sound so smart that people can't listen. And that other people who hear are like, God, that guy's smart. But what I do know is that it doesn't matter how we got there, whether it was degreed, doctorate, or homeschooled, homebrewed messages and insight that was inspired, you're going to make it just fine to whatever you're trying to achieve right now. Whatever you're trying to achieve is only being short-circuited by some of the things that pass through our very hands, into our very ears, into our eyes, into our noses. All of these different things that we entertain ourselves with are the only things chipping away at the time that we spend. I love to spend my time in nature. So right after I'm done with my errands, don't worry, guys. I hope that you enjoyed watching Lord Byron on in the. I was going to say on the tube. Well, yeah, it still works. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're having a blessed day, like I mentioned and we talked about when I passed by the church not long ago. And I hope that my interruptions that are giving you thoughts about how I think, like the movie references, the power of Christ compels. I hope all that really helps you to know me, to understand me, and I definitely look forward to communicating with you and to helping one another to short circuit those things that are causing us to basically spiral continuously, possibly throughout time because we're so in love with one another. I don't know. I changed subjects again. Why did I do that? In this particular case, it's because two buzzards are flying overhead, circling with one another, and I didn't want to make it sound dreary that, the world is spiraling. Could have gone in normally just one direction. I mean, usually when you hear that, it can normally just go in one direction. The world is spiraling out of control. Nope. It's spiraling out of love. So, I love you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I know you love me too. That's why I'm successful at what I do. I couldn't be there without you. And at the same time, I know that we're learning things in a lot of cases globally far, far apart from one another. But we're never really all that far apart. Have a great everything. Peace.